rising up. You don't really know I shine. Me, I got something that I need to prove. I cannot lose, nah. Everything I do that really is news. You look confused, why? You are what you choosing to do. Me, I've been making the moves, paying my dues, getting this done with the fam. Y'all know that I am the dude. Bend that low, hit that high, got that hustle, got that drive. One more time, best alive. I want it all, everything mine.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Football Forecast, man. There's so much shit that took place over the course of Week 4. It would take forever to unpack if we went little by little, man. But just some of the things that stood out, man. There's some injuries that took place. We'll get into that. I brought up a little bit of a conspiracy theory that I had last week. Zero inside sources. I know nobody. There were no public reports. And what do you know? I was right. We had some veteran quarterbacks just continue to come in and dominate, man, and make these young quarterbacks look like the scrubs that they are for the most part. And I've got a couple facts to back that up. I'm not just on here talking shit. I'm not one of these old heads just yelling at the clouds talking about all kids today don't know shit. I mean, I kind of am, but it's justified. So, on top of that, man, I feel like some of the cream's starting to rise to the top. And there's a lot more questions than answers. But still, being 4 weeks into the season, basically a quarter of the way through the season already, man, it's flying by. It really is. But some of the teams are starting to separate themselves, and we're starting to get a better feel of who these teams actually are. I mean, in general, it was a phenomenal weekend of football, regardless of the shitty quarterback play. So, man, there's so much shit going on around the NFL, man. We got to get into these headlines, dude. There's too much. First and foremost, dude, I got to take credit for this Davante Adams shit. I told y'all last week when I put out the video that I had a little bit of a conspiracy, and what do you know? I was right. Davante Adams and Max Crosby don't just sit out ever. Davante Adams and Max Crosby both showcased their friendship. They're like basically brothers. When you watch that show, Netflix Receivers, that Peyton Manning directed, when you watch that show, you understand how close these two guys are. When you also take into account a lot of the things that Davante Adams has said in the past, and I'm kind of starting to pump my brakes. I like him as a wide receiver talent, but this is just another receiver that seems to put himself and his selfish needs ahead of the team every time. And if you're doing it every now and then because of, in their case last season, at least the first half of the season, a shitty head coaching hire, I get those frustrations. But it's starting to become a trend, man. But I have zero inside sources with the NFL. There were no public reports about anything. Most people, when they heard Antonio Pierce say that a lot of their players made business decisions last week and they were going to have to make business decisions as well, most people would tell you he was referring to Jack Jones. Some people brought up Davante Adams, but there was nothing blatantly obvious in the tape where he was loafing or whatever. This was just purely a gut feeling. I said that him and Max Crosby are probably just milking an injury this week because they're frustrated. They obviously want to be a part of a more functional organization than what the Raiders are right now. And I get that. But I said that I had a feeling that they were taking this week to shop themselves. And what do you fucking know? 4 days later, it all comes out. Pierce don't want Davante Adams there. The front office don't want him there. He don't want to be there. And Max Crosby ain't the type of dude to just milk an injury. He's a dog. He's going to be on the field if he can physically play. 40% health, 30% health, it don't matter. He's going to be out there. I think that they're shopping together. Haven't heard anything come out about the Max Crosby thing, but my gut was right about Davante Adams. And this kind of ties in with the next headline. The biggest injury by far of the weekend was Rashee Rice going down. I mean, this is just another catastrophic blow to the Chiefs. It was one after another. They didn't know the severity of the Hollywood Brown before the season started. Then they lose their workhorse running back, Pacheco. They're scrambling, trying to find whoever to recover for those guys. Luckily, they hit on Xavier Worthy in the draft class this year. How could you not? But then, man, to lose your guy that's catching 10 to 15, literally 10 to 15 balls a game, and he was their offense, because the Chiefs' offenses look shitty. If you take Rashee Rice away from this offense and just look at everything else, I mean, they're bottom tier. They're down there with the Broncos' offense and the New England offense and some of the more inept offenses in the entire NFL. But, man, when you consider the adversity that they've already faced this season and the fact that they're still 4-0, man, you got to give Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and definitely Steve Spagnuolo their flowers. And we really need to start considering coordinators for Coach of the Year. Because the job that Steve Spagnuolo is doing with this Kansas City defense is some of the best work I've ever seen. Now, I'm a defensive nut. The designs, the game plans, everything, the personnel groupings, just the disguised blitzes, the disguised dropbacks, the pressures. Not to mention, they're moving Chris Jones all over the place. And when it's an obvious passing down, moving him out on left tackles, and there's a lot injured around the NFL, putting him on these guys in third down, obvious passing situations, and just letting the biggest, most dominant D tackle do work on the edge, brilliant. I mean, just brilliant stuff. So, but who's going to step up here? Could this be a landing spot for Davante Adams? Nah, I wouldn't think so. But you can bet your ass that Xavier Worthy is going to have a lot more put on his plate. The only thing that makes me nervous there is his size. I don't know if his body can sustain the same level of physicality that Rashee Rice was getting. Something else that we saw this weekend, Derrick Henry absolutely exploded just like we all knew that he could. I listened to some guys that I have a lot of respect for in sports media continuously talk about how this offense will just never fit Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry both. And I've been saying for 5 years that if Derrick Henry just got out of fucking Tennessee and went to Baltimore, everybody's life would be different. Before the season started, I said that Derrick Henry is by far at his best when he's able to get downhill runs. He's going to average 2.5, 3 yards in the first quarter, but you cannot panic. When Derrick Henry is running through people's faces, he weighs 250 pounds and moves like a literal train. That shit wears on defenses. And by the third and fourth quarter, that's when he starts ripping off the 10, 15, 30-yard rushes. Is in the second half. After he's done beat the shit out of their defense the whole first half. As the game gets going, Derrick Henry's the type to get more and more comfortable. But the people that were out there saying that this shit wouldn't work were talking about how bad Lamar Jackson is under center. And I know these guys are smarter than that. You can kill two birds with one stone. Lamar Jackson is definitely a shotgun quarterback. In years past, they've always put the running back directly beside Lamar in shotgun. The obvious meet in the middle compromise here for them is the pistol. That gets Lamar facing the defense at all times. That gets Derrick Henry running downhill. Granted, it's not exactly the same mesh point that's taken place a yard in the backfield. Now the mesh point's 3 or 4 yards in the backfield. I get that, but he's still moving downhill, and Lamar Jackson's still able to be comfortable in managing his reads. And they pulled it off to perfection, man. I was so happy to see Baltimore finally explode, especially Derrick Henry, because he's taken a lot of hate. And I've been hating on Todd Monken because the first 3 weeks, I'm sitting here going, what the fuck, dude? The answer's so obvious. Man, the next thing that stood out, and this is not up for debate at all. These veteran quarterbacks that everybody's written off that make between $2 and $10 million a year compared to these franchise quarterbacks making $50 to $70 million a year, they continue to come in and overperform their paychecks. While you've got guys like Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson with these big bags and absolute dick to show for it. The job that Andy Dalton's come in 2 weeks in a row now has been phenomenal. Sam Darnold's up for Player of the Year, if not League MVP at this point, which is insane. Geno Smith looks like the damn second coming of Donovan McNabb or some shit. I mean, he is slinging the ball all over the yard. And I make that comparison because Donovan McNabb was mobile, but he never wanted to run first. He would run to create space to make big plays. He had a huge arm. I've never seen this Geno Smith. And if you're looking for a today comparison, I mean, this dude's tough as nails, hanging in the pocket, just slinging it. Josh Allen, Dak Prescott. These are very, very relatable comps that I don't think that I sound crazy saying. And nobody's ever compared Geno Smith to anybody in the upper echelon of quarterbacks, ever. But he looks fucking good. And he's got serious weapons. And then, another thing that I've been saying, AR5. I heard one of the funniest things today, IR5. Because this man cannot stay on the field. And just like I said last week in the video, the Steelers game is exactly the type of game where he gets fucked up. I knew it. But I've also been saying that as soon as that happens and Joe Flacco comes in, or they just decided to bench his ass because he is literally completing less than 50% of his passes, I said as soon as Joe Flacco comes in, this Indianapolis offense is going to start clicking on all cylinders. Because now you have a true NFL playbook at your disposal. It's not backyard bullshit anymore. Another thing that stood out to me, man, Monday night, I said that if Mike McDaniel can somehow find a way to look anything remotely close to the Dolphins offense that we've gotten to know, I would deem him as possibly one of the biggest geniuses in the game today, and start considering, like, because of his creativity, you got to start talking about, like, all-time greats as far as offensive design. But what I saw him do with a quarterback that's been there for less than a week was mind-blowing to me. This is a complicated offense that requires a high IQ guy like Tua to run it. Tua's a smart quarterback. You have to have an intelligent quarterback to run the system. I don't know Tyler Huntley or what his mental capacity is. But I can imagine his 5-day mental capacity is not going to be anywhere close to the shit that you were able to instill with Tua. And why did they even have Skylar Thompson to begin with? I guarantee you Skylar knows this offense better than Tyler Huntley does. He's been there. Why do you even have him on your roster? And if you are going to put Huntley into the game, you cannot be running 3 plays into the huddle with all of the pre-snap motion and all the misdirection and chaos that they have going everywhere. They've got multiple people shifting at the same time. But when you've had a guy in your locker room for 5 days, you cannot run the whole playbook. And my God, it looked bad. He would have been better off if he was going to play Huntley, because he probably is a better quarterback. He would have been better off instilling 20 plays and working the shit out of them all week. Like literally moving to more or less like a high school level playbook. It's a week. You got 1 week. Take your weapons. You have A-Chain healthy. You have Tyreek healthy. You have Waddle healthy. Jonnu Smith healthy. Braxton Berrios, he doesn't get enough credit. He's healthy. Jalen Wright, your rookie, he's healthy. You have guys everywhere that are capable of producing at a tremendous level. And you made the offense so fucking convoluted that nothing worked. And then you went completely gimmicky and bullshitty and basically just punted this game in the second half. Mike McDaniel just looked so confused. Not to mention, He's got his literal superstars screaming irate in his ear while he just stares blankly onto the field. That's not a good sign. Not a good look. All they had to do was keep it simple, and he overthought it. Sometimes being an offensive genius is just understanding the moment and the situation and making the most out of it, and then building on it more next week. But man, this game was so bad. Another thing that stood out to me, man, Washington is the real deal. Don't want to hear shit about Washington anymore. And I will go as far to say they are a serious, serious threat to the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys of legitimately winning this division. And I wish that I just recognized that like the rest of the world. But on August 20th, before the season started, I put one future bet in, just one. And it was the Washington Commanders to win this division. You know why? Nick Sirianni lost his locker room. He's lost it. I knew it last season. You don't just have a collapse like that. Mike McCarthy, obvious hot seat. Obvious hot seat. Dallas Cowboys are a hotbed for coaches on the hot seat. He's been there way too long. He's done nothing. It's either him or Dak. It's going to be him. I just anticipated the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles basically imploding from the inside out. You can forget about the Giants, although they are starting to look better on offense. But man, that $30 future bet on Washington to win the NFC East pays $400, and I'm already getting offered over $100 on a cash out. I feel very good about that. I'm going to let it ride. Another thing that stood out this weekend, man, Kareem Hunt is back. While everybody else was scratching and clawing to go get Carson Steele and Samaje Perine, I went out and scooped up Kareem Hunt in 3 out of my 5 money leagues. I did not have the balls to start him, didn't really need to, but I needed depth, and there was somebody on all 3 of those teams at running back that I whiffed on. I'm looking to replace him, and I'd be damned if Kareem Hunt wasn't back, baby. I don't support any of the bullshit that occurred off the field with him. I don't stand with that shit. But I do believe in second chances. And if he is truly a changed man, remorseful, and just ready to grind and work, become a part of this offense again, where he thrived better than he ever did at Cleveland. Oh yeah. This was a great, great move. Sean Payton is back in his bag. Everybody knows him to be an offensive guru. But what they don't know is that Sean Payton is definitely a defensive genius as well. You cannot be that smart offensively without understanding what cripples defenses and what defenses cripple offenses. Sean Payton went out on national television last season when he was in the booth, or 2 years ago, when he was in the booth, and said that the coaching job that Nathaniel Hackett did in Denver was by far the worst coaching job that he's ever seen in his life. Well, they finally met. And Aaron Rodgers wasn't happy about it either. He was vocal about it as well. And I expected Sean Payton to stand on business and keep this shit close. The spread was 7.5. That was one of the easiest bets of the week, that spread. But I didn't think that they would actually win it, man. This defense is legit. And there's some serious question marks about the Jets. How does Breece Hall only have 10 carries, number one? But number two, how does he only have 4 yards? How? How does Breece Hall only have 4 yards? You talk to anybody, listen to anybody who talks about this offensive line, that evaluates this offensive line, all the moves that they made during the offseason, everybody would tell you that this is a top 5 all-around offensive line. And if you have that type of quality beef up front, and you cannot get a superstar running back to average more than a half a yard a carry, that's pathetic. And that's 1,000% on the coaching. But man, I'm going to leave y'all with this so you can decide for your damn selves. Quarterbacks' average yards passing per game compared to 2020 is down 47 yards per game. And if you look over the past 10 seasons combined, the average this season through the first 4 games is down 38 yards. And when you consider how tight a lot of these averages are team by team, I wasn't a statistics major in college, but I would venture to say that when you're getting 47 yards and 38 yards outside of the mean, when you factor in standard deviation and all the other shit, I would imagine that this is an outlier type of season, which will also tell you that this is just an absolutely astronomically abysmal quarterback season. NIL, that's the answer. NIL and the whole college setup is directly responsible for this shit. Because instead of allowing themselves to be humble and be coached, the second that they don't get exactly what they want, they find the next fucking school that'll give them up $500,000 or $100,000 or whatever the case may be. And that's why you've got college landscape in the position that it's in. And that's why you're seeing these literal outlier piss poor performances from the quarterbacks in the NFL. That's exactly why.
How you play the game with the people that writing the rules? Ain't the fame that I'm after when paying the dues. I've been through the pain that's reflected in the attitude. Might be winning now, but the thing is that I had to lose. So go and tell me what you really want to do. And lonely at the top, cause there ain't a lot of room. Ain't no other option, it's all I ever knew. So I'ma get it poppin', you know how I'ma do. I've been down through the blood and the sweat. Guarantee you can know I'm a threat. Up and down